and the thing that I call the dramatic redemption. God choosing to elect people, that's what we've seen, starting with the Seth and from the tribe of
take your time. Isaac?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm going blank this one. Japheth, Ham, and what's that word? Shemites.
Oh.
So God specifically chose the Shemites, and from the Shemites he's narrowing it down to the seed, the one seed, which is leading to which of course, as we know, is a precursor to the seed, Jesus Christ. So what we see in this winter's lesson is that we see where, if you look into this lesson, this is the first time that we've heard Isaac mentioned since the offering, the binding of Isaac by Abraham on the altar, and God provided the substitute. So he was Jehovah Jireh, and this is the first time we see Isaac here since that time, and this is also the last time you'll see Abraham in one of his great tests of faith. But as a matter of fact, what you're going to see in today's lesson is that Abraham is a different man than he was from the time that he bound Isaac. This is nearly 30 years or more. Sometime, and you can see, if you look at it carefully, you see the maturation of Abraham as accepting his role and learning that he is indeed the chosen seed of the chosen race, and that the blessings that come through him, and that he's concerned about his age, he's aging, and he's concerned about the promise of the covenant that God has made with him as to who's going to attest to who's going to follow. You remember earlier he had said to God, before he had Isaac, he says, looks like it was going to be his servant Eleazar will have to be the one. Will have to be the one to carry on. But God showed him that it was not going to be Eleazar. And you go through the lessons, lessons where Abraham has his battle with the three kings, these great kings, and he defeats them. He delivers his myself here. I almost said he delivers not this time right here. I'm ahead of myself. Y'all heard me this morning. But at any rate, the point I'm trying to make is that Abraham has now, Sarah has died. And Sarah died at a good old age. And Isaac is, according to scholars, Isaac is very depressed. And he's lonely. And he knows that he is to be, because he's watched, just like Eleazar has, watched his father, Abraham, be faithful and mature, and knows that he has to carry on the promise. So in today's lesson, what we see Abraham basically sending as a missionary, because if you, I don't want to get into this one until the spiritual meaning of all the allegorical part about Abraham, not Abraham, Isaac, Rebekah, and Eleazar being pictures of Christ or the church and the mission and everything else. Because we can indeed draw that analogy if we wanted to, I think. If we look at what Jesus said in in Mark, in Luke, on the Emmaus Road, is that the totality of scriptures about him. But at any rate, what we see in today's lesson is we see that and that's Eleazar, because if you look at the Bible carefully, it says a servant, but it says also an elder or older servant. And we know from chapter 15 of Genesis that servant that Abraham had initially alluded to as being the heir of his property, his land and so forth, was going to be Eleazar. but God told him it would not be. So we make the assumption that this is still Eleazar. You know, it may not be Eleazar, but we're gonna call this one for Eleazar. So he goes on the journey, and I want to stress to you how important it is that we understand that Eleazar has learned carefully from Abraham how to trust the Lord. And if you remember, before he sends Eleazar off, he makes him do a binding oath, promising him that he would go find his son a wife, that he would not take his son back to Mesopotamia, and that he would not take a wife from among the Hittites, the Canaanites, and so forth. And so that brings us to my first question, I guess, is why was it so important that Abraham made this? When Abraham made Eleazar bind, when Abraham made Eleazar commit to him, why he would not allow his son to take a wife from the Canaanites or the Hittites or the other ites, and that he would not allow him to be taken down to Mesopotamia. What do you think the reason for that is? There's a biblical, and the reason I'm asking this question is because there's a biblical warrant for that God has already discussed in our chapters that we've studied. All those things not to happen. So why does he not allow him to go to Mesopotamia with him? And why does he not allow him to take a wife from among the Canaanites and the Hittites?
I know it has something to do with them. I know it's cultural. Something about not being intermarriage or being married. I know it's a part of the promise, but it's something about basically interracial marriages or something like that. Being married to somebody that's not a part of the family. I don't know. I don't want to say part of the family because that's what he ended up going back to his uncles.
Okay.
And that's when he had to pick a wife, but didn't want to intermingle with the others.
Okay. You said two things: part of the family and intermingle with others. But why not that family as opposed to the family that he did choose from, and why not the intermingle? But you dig a little different than that.
Because I think.
Let me give you a hint for starters. Do you remember when Noah they received together back on dry land, and Noah and Noah made drink and got drunk, and his sons, remember certain sons, saw him. Remember what Noah did?
He cursed him.
Which one did he curse?
No.
The Hamites. Okay. And so now, how would you tie that to my question?
The people in Canaan did not worship Yahweh.
Okay. The people in Canaan did not worship Yahweh. And God had placed a curse upon them. And the covenant the promise of the covenant cannot be kept within a cursed community. The covenant community is what kind of community? It's a blessed community. It's an elect community. It's a select community. It's a chosen community. And therefore, he was not allowed to take children or wives or intermingle with the seed of Satan. I call it the seed of Satan. Let me put it like that. Remember, this is the godly line versus the ungodly line. And therefore he is, because Abraham remembers the curse that God has placed upon Canaan. And he knows that he has to preserve the covenant that God has given him. God had promised him several things in that covenant. Remember in 15th chapter, he had promised to give him a land, and there would be sojourners, and that he would choose him for a people for himself first of all, and give his people a land, and that he was to take possession of it, and that he was going to bless his enemies, bless him, and bless those that blessed him. That he blessed rather blessed him, but also at the same time would curse his enemies. So Abraham remembers that, and he knows that in order to preserve the covenant, that he has to have someone that is a God-fearer, someone that loves the Lord, someone that God has chosen for his people to preserve the seed. Because remember, this is all about the drama of redemption. It's leading down to the seed, the one seed, not just the covenant people, Israel, not just Isaac versus Ishmael, not just going down, but the one seed, Jesus Christ. So, what's the other part of the question I asked you? Why couldn't he go to Mesopotamia with him? Why couldn't Ellis take him down to pick out his own wife and then bring him back?
Because God had taken Abraham out of that area,
Mm-hmm.
so he wouldn't let him go back to that area that God had brought them out from.
Right. But remember, God had also promised him that there would be sojourners, but he would give them a land, which was the land of what? Canaan land.
Mm-hmm.
Canaan land was to become their land. If Isaac were to go back, he may have likely stayed down there, but God did not want them to return. It's like he didn't want them to return to Egypt. He didn't want Abraham to return back to Ur of the Chaldees or his seed, because he has made us promise to him that he will give him this land. I will give him, he said, this land, a land that he has set aside for them. Okay,
I was looking at, when you were talking about Canaan, I was looking at verses 2. If you look at what verses 2 and 3 it says, or 3 and 4 it says, well, I guess I better go back to 2. It says, and Abraham said to his servant, the oldest of his household, who had charge of all that he had, put your hand under my thigh, that I may make you swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and the God of earth, that you will not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I dwell, but I will go to my country, and to my kindred to take a wife for my son Isaac.
It was a solemn oath, and we're going to talk about that later on as to why they use the expression about putting his hands on his loins. That's an old ancient thing they should do for covenant keeping. We'll talk about it a little bit later. But we're not going to read a lot more. We're going to just read. But I'm just going to read the complete chapter of 24 because I think it's important to read the whole chapter, the full picture. Bear in mind that this journey that Ellis is about to take is not an overnight journey. This is a quite lengthy journey. Some scholars say, as the crow flies, is approximately 500 miles. But unfortunately, they didn't go as the crow. They didn't go as the crow. They didn't go as the crow flies, as her plane flies. They went the regular route, which is approximately 900 miles long. So we're talking about a journey that took him some time.
I got a picture in my Bible. It's like they had to go up and around.
Up and around. Not across. Exactly. Right. Up and around, we makes it a long journey. So you're talking about 1,000 miles, roughly 900 miles there. If you think about that, they got to return.
And then back.
You got to return. We're talking about 1,800 mile trek. That's a long trek. But that's important because I think this is the time where Eliezer, being the servant of Abraham, and I want you to see here, watch Abraham watch Eleazar very carefully here, because he's very, very much following the shadow of Abraham. He's very, very much, you can see that he's learned, he's watched Abraham, he's observed him, and he's mimicking his behavior. And he's learning to trust the same God that Abraham's trust. And that's why Abraham bound him to that oath from the beginning. Because it's tied back. We'll get to that. Anyway, let's go back. Let's go to Genesis 24. Okay. And get what it says here too, because when you read this first verse, you ask yourself, well, not the first verse, the first verse. Looking back in these previous chapters, how can they say this here? It says right here, it says, now Abraham was old, well advanced in years, and the Lord had blessed Abraham in all things. Now, look back now, look backwards in these other chapters. All things Abraham's gone through, no matter how he faltered, how he struggled, God has blessed him. He said, in all things. And it said, and Abraham said to his servant, see, it's his servant here, it didn't say, but we make the assumption from 15 on, that it's my Eleazar. He says, the oldest of his household, which was Eleazar, who had charge of all he had. Because remember now, Eleazar, he had already identified Eleazar. He says, in the 15th chapter, I've had nobody here. All that I have is going to pass on to my servant Eleazar. But God told him it ain't going to be so. Don't worry, no, it ain't so. And remember now, this is before Isaac was even born. So now Isaac is approximately 40 years old. So this is looking back some years now. And it says, and Abraham said to his servant, the oldest of his household, who had charge of all he had, put your hand under my thigh, called the loins, and that I may make you swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and the God of earth, that you will not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites among whom I dwell. But you will go to my country and to my kindred and take a wife for my son Isaac. The servant said to him, perhaps, let's stop right there real first. In the ancient Near East, to bind someone to an oath, remember that an oath or covenant involves what we call a cutting ceremony or a cutting rite. And it's usually tied to a conjugal vow, a vow that's binding forever for a man and a wife, of that nature. But the putting the hand under the thigh is considered a vital or a procreated part of the body that's near the organ. So therefore, goes back toward, leading toward the cutting rite. If you don't do this here, may you be cut off. In other words, this is a sacred, serious vow that Abraham makes Eleazar take. And Eleazar takes it, but he remember when he takes it, he does ask a question about, what if they don't want to come? What if she doesn't want to come back with me if I found one? And he makes provisions for that as well. So remember now, the putting the hand under the thigh is because it is the thigh or the loin is considered a vital, a procreated part of the body for procreation. Vital, it's a vital part. Therefore, in order to carry on the covenant, you get the offspring, the carrying on of this covenant, the preservation of this covenant. Okay, and it says, and he makes those two vows, that he would not take a wife among the Canaanites, because remember that he's remembering, and Abraham's remembering the curse that God has placed upon the Canaanites, and he does not want a wife cursed to be mixed with the blessing. And he's not take his son out of the land, because God had promised him that land was theirs, even though they were sojourners. And even at the point you can see, even when Sarah dies and Abraham dies, even all that God had given Abraham only owned one plot of land. It was Machpelah. when he died. But his offspring owned all of it. But Abraham himself owned Machpelah. And it says in verse 5, the servant said to him, perhaps the woman will not be willing to follow me to this land. Must I then take your son back to the land from which you came? Abraham said to him, see to it, and watch what it says here. This is stern. See to it that you do not take my son back there. The Lord, the God of heaven, who took me from my father's house and from the land of my kindred, and who spoke to me and swore to me, to your offspring, what it says? To your offspring, and who's his offspring? Isaac. Not Ishmael, but Isaac. I will give this land. He says, God has given us this land, and we got to stay here. We take possession of the land. Don't take him down there. He's here, the land that God has promised. He stays here. And it says,
He will send his angel.
what verse was that?
1:7 is the last part. He will send his angel before you, and you shall take it.
Okay. And the Lord, spoke to me. To your offspring I will give this land. He will send his angel. And you catch what Abraham's telling Eliezer. I remember earlier, in times past, Abraham would have tried to stood over this here and figured it out. He'd got up early in the morning and tried to figure it out. He says, the Lord will send his angel before you, and you shall take. He's certain. His faith is sure. He's certain that God is going to give him providential care, going before him, and provide everything he needs on this journey when he gets there and get him back. God is sending before you. Take a wife for my son from there. But if the woman is not willing to follow you, he said, "Oh, I know God will send a woman. You can find a woman. You can find a woman that God send me, have me send you down again. But if she don't want to come back," he says, if a woman is not willing to follow you, then you will be free from this oath of mine. Only you must not, and he iterates again, you must not take my son back there. He is the heir to the promise of the land that he's at Canaan. And it says, so the servant put his hand under the thigh of Abraham, his master, and swore to him concerning this matter. After they had the discussion and all the bugs worked out of this deal, he says, okay, we can go through. Then that's when he takes this. That's when Eliezer takes what's considered a conjugal vow to Abraham, that I will do as you say. I will do as the Lord has commanded. Your God is my God, because this is what it boils down to, is that Abraham is preserving the covenant that God has made with him. And he's putting his servant in charge to go and deliver that. Okay. So then the servant took 10 of his master's camels and departed, taking all sorts of choice gifts from his master. And he arose and went to Mesopotamia, to the city of Nahor. And he came, and he made the camels to kneel down outside the city by the well of water at the time of evening, the time when women go out to draw water. And he said, O Lord God, O Lord Yahweh Elohim. He says, my master Abraham. He said, O Lord God of my master Abraham, please grant me success today and show steadfast love to thy master Abraham. And behold, I am standing by the spring of water, and the daughters of the men of the city are coming out to draw water. Let the young woman to whom I shall say, please let down your jar that I may drink, and who shall say, drink, and I will water your camels, let her be the one whom you have appointed for your servant Isaac. By this I shall know that you have shown steadfast love to my master. And you see everything Eleazar does? Everything he does, he always keeps saying, my master, my master. He's going back to because he knows the vow of the covenant was made to Abraham. And he's just an emissary to help bring about this phase of the covenant of redemption to bring about. So he's doing it in obedience to the charge Abraham has given him. And he sent the God of Abraham back to Abraham. Everything back to Abraham. Always back to Abraham. Because he has made this sacred vow to Abraham and Abraham's God. So he says to him, and Abraham, and so when he gets to, well, obviously he made this 900-mile journey. he and his servants, because you don't read it here, but I'll tell you right now, he didn't go by himself. He had 10 camels with him, and there's no way you trek with camels with a one-man caravan, especially 900 miles. But because you see later on, it points right about that.
But he's very specific.
Mm-hmm.
When he wanted God to show him who she was, he was very specific. The woman, not only the woman drawing the water for me, but the one that's willing to voluntarily feed my camels.
Right. This prayer is a very. Some commentators relate this prayer, compare this prayer to the prayer that Gideon prayed, and I strongly disagree with that. This prayer is not like Gideon's prayer. Gideon is fleece throwing. This is not a fleece throwing prayer. This is a prayer that is mature, and that's the prayer of a spiritual man. This is the prayer. This man has done a lot of thinking, a lot of praying on this journey, and like I said, he's remembering Abraham. He's remembering all the things he's gone through all these years. He's seeing how God worked. He's seeing how God fulfilled all the promises to Abraham, and this guy is matured along with Abraham. And he gets there, and the first thing he does is pray. He doesn't just go and do his own thing. And he doesn't go in and say, when I get down here, I'm going to go and make a cry to the city. Behold, I am sent from my master Abraham, a rich man, has plenty, has much, has a son, a rich son, has many land, wants a wife for his daughter. Who wants to be? He doesn't do all this, none of that kind of stuff. He gets there, he prays, and he prays very specifically, Lord, and this we see what God's providence is coming through here. Seeing God's providential care in providing for what he had specifically prayed for. And there's a reason why he prays the way he prays, because he knows that he has to have a woman. See, another thing too, if you notice what he said, when he said in all these stipulations he asked God, this is all about servitude. This is all about servanthood. He never says, Lord, give me a woman that's beautiful for Isaac, for my master's son. He says, he's telling God basically, I know my master Abraham is a man of faith. And Isaac is the heir of the promise. I need a woman that's spiritually right for Abraham. I need a woman that's spiritually right for Isaac. A woman that would serve him and fulfill the role. He realizes also the role that Sarah has played for her son Isaac, and that he needs to have someone to fulfill that role. A woman of faith, a woman of peace, a woman of that's willing to be her all for her man. So he said, a woman that's coming serving. When I say I need water, I ain't got to ask her what to do. She willingly goes. And she goes and she gives water for the camel. And you know, I don't know how true this is. Some people say a camel can hold 25 to 30 to 40 gallons of water. Some people say 20. I don't know how much they hold. I don't really care. But the point being is that we know they drink a lot of water. And what she does now, this guy, his people has 10 camels. And she comes at the time, he said that the Bible says at the time of day when the women usually come out to draw, because that was the chore that women usually did. To come out to draw the water for the camel. And this woman is pretty, and you can later on, you can see what the Bible calls her beautiful. The Bible says that only about 2 or 3 women. There's about I think it was Bathsheba. It says about Esther. It says about Sarah, I think, but it says about Rebekah was a very pretty woman. So we would say her newly Herbie. She was a pulchritude. She's a real beauty, a real eye catcher. You know, but he didn't remember. He didn't pray for this here. He said he wants someone that he would see the spirit of servanthood, the spiritual maturity that would wait on a man to love a man the way Isaac did to be loved. Anyway, he said, anyway, I'm back to the camel. If they said a camel could drink 25 to 40 gallons of water. Well, we say for all practical purposes, these camels were thirsty enough to drink 25 gallons of water at the low end, not the high end. If they drink 40 gallons of water, that was 400 gallons of water. That's a heap of water. If they drink 25 gallons of water, that's 250 gallons of water. Now, bear in mind, the buckets that they went down to the well to get usually was 3 to 5 gallons a bucket. So that means, and I don't know if she had kind of, most of the wells in the Middle East were in the Middle East. They were the kind that you had to have that steps that went down and you down where it's low to draw where the water had break in the reservoir. Then you come back up and out. And there were some, of course, you could stay on top and you had the bucket draw down and bring back up. But either way,
it's a lot of work.
A lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
What work did I want to do? See, now I remember when I was a boy, I actually had to carry a 5-gallon bucket of water, just about maybe 5 blocks, and because we didn't have a pump at one time, we'd go tell our neighbors how to get pumped water, and I used to hate it. And by the time I get to home, 1/4 of that water had wasted out because, you know.
That you carrying it, it's shaking.
I'm carrying it, shaking. You know, you have to learn how to carry a bucket right way. But anyway, she does this work herself. Now, she had maidens, sure enough, and I'm sure they may have helped her, but they do this work. They bring this, they take 10 camels, and this is not just a hour chore.
It's an all-day thing.
This is a 3-hour chore that they're doing, while the men are resting and conversing and they observe. And while they're doing it, I'm sure Ellis is watching and observing her, and he's thinking, "Oh God, I so thank you. You have answered my prayer." He's seeing the spirit of humility in her. He's seeing the spirit of willingness in her. Anyway, let's move on. And it says, I think it's 15 we're in. I'm going to go back. What it says here. It says, "Please let down your jar that I may drink. And also and who shall say, drink." See, he said, not only did she give me water, but she took care of my animals too. And it says, Please let down your jar, and I will water your camels. Let her be the one whom you have appointed. This is by divine appointment. For your servant, Isaac. See, he always goes back. He's never about him. It's back to the mission that God and Abraham has sent him for. He says, "I shall know that you have shown." The word steadfast is the word hesed. And we call that covenant love. You've shown covenant love to my master. He says, your hesed love, I know. When you've done that, I know that you have preserved and that you, by your divine appointed time, have shown love of election. I mean, not election, but covenant love to my master Abraham. It says, therefore, 15, before he had finished speaking, and see what it says? See, this is another thing too. When you really know that God is the God. I mean, you may know God's in control, but sometimes God, as old folks say, sometimes God shows out better than you expect him to.
Mm-hmm.
When he's still speaking this prayer, before he finished praying this prayer, voila, it's answered. It's answered. He says that, behold, before he had finished speaking, behold, Rebekah, who was born to Bethuel, how you pronounce that, but Bethuel, I think Bethuel, because you want to do the EL sound in it. Bethuel, the son of Milcah. Remember who Milcah was. Remember, these are Abraham's father's children. This Abraham's was Nahor's brother, or is it
his brother?
That was his
It was his brother, yeah, whatever it was, yeah, his brother. And he says, the son of Milcah, the wife of Nahor, Abraham's brother, came out with her water jar on her shoulder. The young woman was very attractive in appearance, and he's also that she was beautiful. She was a virgin, whom no man had known. She went down to the spring and filled her jar and came up. So this is the kind of thing, well, that you went down. It went down to the jar. It went down to the spring and filled the jar and came up. Then the servant ran to meet her and said, "Please give me a little water to drink from your jar." So he's seeing it. She's going to take care of her stuff, but he said, "Well, I'm going to ask for some water." She said, "First of all, water for me, then water for my camels." And he asked her for water. This reminds me of the story John 4. You know what it says? "Please give me a little water to drink from your jar." She said, "Drink, my lord." And she quickly let down her jar up, and she quickly let her jar up on her hand and gave him a drink. When she had finished giving him a drink, she said, "I will draw water for your camels also, until they have all finished drinking." So she quickly emptied her jar into the trough and ran again to the well to draw water. And she drew for all his camels. The man gazed at her in silence and learned whether the Lord had prospered his journey or not. He's sitting there pondering, meditating. Has God blessed me or has he not? See, he says, and see, and another thing, when he asked for water, he didn't have to ask for the second request. That's grace. See, that's how God is. This is all a picture of grace. Remember now, when we look at this thing here, we look at Rebekah. Rebekah is a picture of the church. Isaac is a picture of Christ, with limitation. Remember, all of that will just break down some point. And then remember, and Eleazar is this picture of a one carrying the word, a messenger, a missionary, bringing the word. And remember now also, but this is important to get here. This is not just about bringing a wife for Isaac. What God is doing, he's bringing salvation to Rebekah. God always brings salvation. God chooses his own. And God delivers his own. And God brings salvation at his own time, his own place. He ordains the means and the ends whereby we all will be saved. So he's bringing salvation to Rebekah. And it says, what verse we stop at? 22. When the camels had finished drinking, the man took a gold ring weighing a half shekel, and 2 bracelets for her arm, and weighing 10 shekels of gold shekels, and said, "Please tell me, whose daughter are you? Is there room in your father's house for us to spend the night?" And she said to him, "I am the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Milcah, whom she bore to Nahor." She added, "We have plenty of room, plenty of both straw and fodder, and room to spend the night." The man bowed his head and worshiped the Lord and said, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who has not forsaken his steadfast love," his hesed love again, "his faithfulness toward my master. As for me, the Lord has led me in the way to a house of my master's kinsman." Then the young woman ran and told her mother's household, about these things. So when Eleazar sees all this stuff, he recognizes that God has indeed fulfilled everything that he's asked for and more, because he not only has a woman that has a spirit of servanthood and servitude, but a gentle spirit, but a woman that's also beautiful, and a woman that's probably beyond his I won't say imagination. A woman probably beyond his expectations that he would find for Isaac. This is a woman. Anyway, So he asked her another thing too, because he sees also this is another part of the prayer God is answering. He's also giving him the prayer. The prayer says, "Of my household, my kindred." He said, "Whose daughter are you?" Remember in the country, you used to be a common thing. However, whose boy are you, boy? Who you belong to? You LC boy? Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Anyway, he says, "Whose daughter are you? Who do you belong to?" And she tells him, and he's Abraham's kindred. And he sees that God has answered that prayer even further. That God has, look at God has more than abundantly answered his prayer. And so he asked her, "Do you have room for us to me, my servants?" Go back to what he said. When he asked that question, because you see, what verse did he ask that question?
23.
23. Please tell me, who's over here? Is there room for your house? Is there room in your father's house for us? So as I mentioned earlier, it wasn't just for he wasn't just one man. To spend the night. And she said to him, "I am." The daughter, I read it already. Okay. So so he gives this blessing. He blesses her lavishly, as a matter of fact. And as a matter of fact, that's just a saying he blesses her out of his abundance. Not from his abundance, but out of his abundance. He has much more they could give. And as a matter of fact, she has much more she's going to when she goes back to Canaan with him. You know what he's saying? And Rebekah had and let's read on further. It says, then Rebekah had a brother whose name was Laban. Laban ran out toward the man to the springs. I'm going to read especially all the way through, and then we just hit 1 or 2 points because our time is over. Rebekah had a brother whose name was Laban. They ran out to the man to the spring. And as soon as he had saw the ring and the bracelet in his sister's arm, and heard the words of Rebekah his sister, thus the man spoke to me. He went to the man, and behold, he was standing by the camel of the spring, by the camels at the spring. He said, "Come in, blessed, O blessed of the Lord. Why do you stand outside? For I have prepared the house and a place for the camels." So the man came to the house and unharnessed the camels and gave straw and fodder to the camels, and there was water to wash the feet and of the feet and the feet of the men who were with him. Then food was set before him, but he said, I will not eat until I have said to you what to, I will not eat until I have said what I have to say. He said, "Speak on." So he said, I am Abraham's servant. The Lord has greatly blessed my master, and he has become great. He has given him flocks, herds, silver and gold, male servants and female servants, camels and donkeys. And Sarah, my master's wife, bore a son to my master when she was old. And then he has given all that he has. See what he's saying? He set it up. Isaac is the progenitor. He's the heir apparent. And he's saying, my master has been, your brother, Abraham, has been mightily blessed. Got all kinds of stuff. And so he said, my master made me swear, saying, you should not take a wife for my son from the daughters of Canaan, in whose land I dwell. But you shall go from my father's house and my clan and take a wife for my son. I said to my masters, perhaps the woman would not follow me. He said to me, the Lord before whom I have walked, within his angel with you, and prosper your way. You shall take a wife for my son. Anyway, what he does, he relates the whole story. He tells them basically of God's providential care. He tells them about how God's fulfilled all those blessings. And he said, I can't eat. I won't eat. Because you have to know why I'm here. You have to know the real story. And see, another thing too about the message of salvation is always, it's urgent. The urgency in which which Eliezer gives this message is that God has done. God has provided. God is doing. We need to move. Can't wait till tomorrow. We got to do it now. The day of salvation is now. And so this is what Eliezer is showing. Let's skip down some. What's the last part of the lesson?
61 to 67.
I want to get to the part where Let's pick up at 50. Then Laban and Bethuel answered and said, the thing has come to us from the Lord. We cannot speak. We cannot speak to you bad or good. Behold, Rebekah is before you. You take her and go and let her be to the wife of your master's son, as the Lord has spoken. I want to talk about, I think I skipped it. It's important to know that when he asked, when I tell the story, he says basically, we can eat, we can sleep, tomorrow morning we can go big and run. That was the urgency of Eleazar's message and his mission. And of course, Laban and Bethuel, they, for whatever reason, and I suspect Laban had other reasons, they're thinking, this man got a lot of stuff. If I could stay here a little bit longer, I can get a little more of that stuff out of the camel's back. Out of my bag. That's me talking now. Because if you know Laban's character, Laban seems to be spoken for the person. So I'm assuming Bethuel was pretty old at this point. And Laban is the one, he's the heir apparent to that property. They got part of it themselves. But Laban has grafting hands. As you can see all through the rest of the book, Laban is very grafting. He's a cheat. Anyway, and so he says, spend 10 days. You know, and he said, Eliezer basically said like he really want to go on. But he said, well, we ask her what she says. And so I'm not sure how many days they stay, but anyway, when she comes in, they ask her the question, and she is willing, because God has prepared her heart to receive salvation. She's willing to go. Let's read what she says.
55 and following.
Okay, let's read 55 and following. And then the servant brought this 3. And then the servant brought Joseph and gave it to Rebekah. And he also gave her brother and to her brother and her mother a costly ornament. 54. And he and the men who were with him ate and drank, and they spent the night there. While they arose, and when they arose in the morning, he said, send me away to my master. Her brother and her mother said, let the woman remain for us for a while, at least 10 days, after she may go. But he said to them, do not delay me. I want you to understand what that word delay means. And this is and if you know anything about Abraham's life initially when he left Ur of Chaldees, God told him not to delay to leave quickly. But if you study the life of Abraham initially, he took his father Terah, and the word Terah means delay. Terah was a hindrance. Abraham's father was a hindrance to Abraham until he died. And it wasn't until Abraham's father died that the delay began to hasten up. So he said and Abraham is talking to you earlier. He taught David Eleazar well. He's learned well from Eleazar. Has learned well from Abraham about the urgency of what God, when God calls you something to do it. He says, "Do not delay me." What verse?
56.
He said to them, "Do not delay me, since the Lord has prospered my way. Send me away that I may go to my master." They said, "Let us call the young woman and ask her." And they called Rebekah and said to her, "Will you go with this man?" And she said, "I will go." So they went. They sent away Rebekah, her sister, and her nurse. Her nurse was Deborah. And Abraham's servant and his men. And they blessed Rebekah and said to her, "O sister, may you come." Let's read what it says here. "O sister, may you come may you become thousands of 10,000s, and may your offspring possess the gates of those who hate you." They have no idea the prophetic words they're speaking to their sister, because she takes Rebekah's place, and she is the mother of those tribes, along with Jacob. Yeah, I'm sorry, because Jacob was Rebekah's son. Okay. And then Rebekah, the young woman, arose and rode on the camels and followed the man. Thus the servant took Rebekah and went his way. Now Isaac had returned from Beer Lohar Roi, and there and was dwelling at the Negev. And Isaac went out to meditate in the field toward evening. And see, Isaac is a praying man here. This is the first time we see Isaac since the offering thing, since the binding of him. And it says, and he in the evening, and he lifted up his eyes, and he saw, and behold, there was camels coming. And Rebekah lifted up her eyes, and she saw Isaac. She dismounted from the camel, and said to her servants, "Who is this man? Who is that man, walking in the fields to meet us?" The servant said, "It is my master." So she took her veil and covered herself. And the servant took Isaac, and the servant told Isaac all the things that he had done. Then Isaac brought her into to the tent of Sarah, his mother, and took Rebekah, and she became his wife. And he loved her. So Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. And that's a lot there we can kind of go into. So we see Isaac out in the field in the evening. He's probably his ritual prayer in the evening, his evening ritual prayer, meditating, and probably waiting for that answer to come back, waiting for his bride to be. So when they're coming close, she sees him, and she asks Ellis and people, "Who's that man?" And he says, "That's my master's son. That's the man we bring to him." It says, and she got off her camel, and she put her veil on her face. And that's important because she's not just any kind of woman. She's a woman of honor. And she knows why she's coming. She knows that she's coming to be his betrothed. So she takes her veil and she goes to meet him. And it says here to us at the end, we know that Isaac brought into her. Then it says, and then Isaac brought her into the tent of Sarah, his mother. This is important because remember now, Sarah's role in this covenant community. Remember, she's the mother of all, and she is the substitute. She's not substitute. She's what's the best word for that? She's the one falling behind to preserve. The man's already there. Isaac is the one preserved behind Abraham, and now he has his mate, his helpmeet, to help him, who is Rebekah. So he brings us to his mother's tent. He brings us to his mother's riches, his mother's all that she has, because Sarah was gone. And he says, but then he said that Isaac knew her, and she became his wife. He loved, and it says, here's what it says here. And she became his wife, and he loved her. So Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. When she gets off the camel, and meets her bride to be, she comes with humility. She comes with respect. You remember this goes back to the Ephesians passage. Men are to love their wives, and women are to do what? Reverence or respect their husbands. This is right here. She respects him, and in return he loves her, and he cares for her. And it says, and in this process, Isaac is comforted because he's not as a substitute, a suitable substitute for the loss of the mother that raised him that he loved so dearly. So he has someone to help him to carry on and preserve the covenant promise. This is the drama of redemption as seen in this phase of the Abrahamic covenant. Amen.